Magic players, ladies and gentlemen, welcome travelers to the next deck on our list, alphabetical list I should say, so it's, kind of not really a surprise. Hunter's Strength, a deck which I look at it and I feel like it's not really that bad, but nobody wants to run it. If people want to run green, they just run Eldrazi, and I think it's too bad. I've always really liked big green, whatever. It's funny because I kind of like everything. I like aggro, I like control, I like big this, I like big that, I like mono this, I like these colors, I like those colors. I freaking like everything. Magic is awesome. Anyway, this deck, they kind of always seem to have a deck just like this in every duels game, and it always seems a little bit underwhelming, and I think this time they finally started to do a few things right, and it seems really effective, but nobody uses it, so maybe it's not effective, and maybe I'm just stupid. Anyway, we're going to put in some mandatory cards first. If you don't want to run Rancor, then don't play the game, I guess, because Rancor is amazing. It turns every single creature into a game-ending threat, and it never goes away. So it's good like that. Savage Summoning is kind of awesome. It's just like, what the hell is that red spell called? Overmaster, I think it was. It's very similar to that, except it's really, really good. Unfortunately, I've never freaking drawn it, so that's unfortunate, but, whatever. Prey Upon is essentially the best thing green is going to get as far as removal. Your stuff should be bigger, you should be able to kill something. At the very least, you should be able to kill something small and in your way. So we'll throw in a couple of those just for now as we go through the bunches of cards, and, whatever, we'll change things up later. 2 cost for a 3/3 creature, very vanilla, but generally people are spending 2 for 2 1s and 2 2s with an ability or 2, and he's just like, you know what, don't care, I'm fat, I'm green. And, whatever. So, Garrick's Companion, he gives himself Trample in place for that 1 extra toughness, which, it kinda hurts, but, you know what, you still gotta run him. He's solid. Revive, this card has potential. You could run it, you could not. It pretty much depends on your build, on whether you think there's something important in your graveyard to get back, which usually is just gonna be a creature. So you kind of figure that early game, this gets you a body back, and late game, this gets you your best guy that just got removed. So it's got potential. Nature's Lore is amazing. It comes into the battlefield. It doesn't say comes into the battlefield tapped. It says comes into the battlefield because it limits you to only forest. I'm sorry, if you're playing a mono green deck, that's not exactly a, not exactly a hindrance to you. So you play all 4 of them. If you have 3 mana on the field, or you got 2 mana on the field, whatever, you play your land for the turn, and then you're like, do I want to cast Garrick's Companion or do I want to cast Nature's Lore? Don't be a herpaderp, and you play both. It's kind of, whatever, that's the way it works, because you just play the 2, you play the 1, you play Garrick's Champion, and you're like, sweet, thanks game. Predator Ooze, he's pretty cool because he says Indestructible on it, and pretty much everything else on that, and doesn't really matter because he's just good, so you play him. Gloom Widow, reach but can block only flying. That's a little disappointing. He still certainly is a 3/3 body at that point offensively, but as far as what he's going to do for you defensively, he's a little bit on the limited side, so you can definitely pass over him if you like. If you want to run a more quicker deck, I don't really know why you would want to play big green and make it aggro, but if you wanted to make it as aggro as you could, I guess you would include them. They still have to be responded for as 3 power. And you can't kill him with a shock, so I guess that's there. It's like a really beastly grave crawler that doesn't come back and costs 3 times as much, and I guess it can block fly, whatever. Eternal Witness is amazing. I don't really want to talk about it, just play them both. Baloth is amazing. I don't really want to talk about him, just play him. Sacred Wolf, I personally don't play him. Some people do. The hexproof is obviously fantastic, and 3 power with hexproof, he's no slouch. He will get in the way and be a thorn in their side for a very long time. I would rather play him over Gloom Widow in a heartbeat. It's just that 1 toughness for me is just not acceptable. I don't want my 3-drop, 3 power hexproof creature, who I consider, because he's 3 power, I consider him to be good and, like better than stuff with lesser power, but then he just gets chumped by a dragon fodder token, and that sucks. So I don't like him for that reason. I suppose if you wanted to go the route of using Oaken forms and things like that, then he's a little bit better that way, but I personally don't run him. You're certainly not going to be looked at funny if you do. Staff of the Wild. The green staff, again, just like the other all the other staffs, it's bad, but it's not like it's bad. Just don't play it. I mean, you could, and sometimes it can pay off, but you can say that about anything. Just don't play it. Beastmaster Ascension. This card it's really crazy, and it can get things out of control very quickly. At the same time, I don't know, it's weird. Like, I know it's good, and I know I probably should run it, and yet I don't run it. So, you know, whatever. I don't really know what to... Hey, Wingspan playing Team Fortress 2. Yeah, I don't know, whatever. I don't run it. You probably should, but we'll look at that later once we get to our 60 cards and see how we're doing and see if this can really make it in there. Stuff like this is a lot of fun when you have one-drops, like, let's say, Birds of Paradise and Land of War Elves, and then you can just bring in a Birds of Paradise to get the attacking token on there. This deck doesn't really have that. If you're attacking enough with big fat green creatures where you get this, you probably are going to do okay anyway. I don't know. Elephant Guide's cool, simply because it replaces itself on a dude, so it makes anything you want fat, put it on this guy because he's got trample, whatever, but it replaces itself, so it makes any early game threat a very big threat, and should they want to remove the threat, he's still kind of there. So I like it a lot. I use it. Oakenform, it's the same thing as Elephant Guide without the replacement. I won't use it. No. Like, where's Blanchwood Armor, guys? Okay, moving on. This dude, he doesn't really fit the theme of the deck in my opinion, but he is an infinite token engine, which is awesome. He also has removal built in as well. Therefore, he makes for a must-remove target because he can single-handedly win the game if you leave him alone. So I run him for sure. And this is where things get tough, ladies and gentlemen. From here on out, there are a lot of very good cards and very good creatures, and there's no longer a lot of space. Excuse me. There's no longer a lot of space to fit everything, and this is where it gets tough. Fanghorn, Fangren Firstborn. I always call him Fanghorn. I don't know why. Sometimes dyslexia, I can't really read the cards, nor do I really care, because it doesn't really matter. When he attacks, everything else that's attacking gets bigger, which is really freaking cool. He doesn't fit my deck just yet, but I'm still kind of working my way down the casting cost tree to get to him, to test him out. If you wanted to play a little bit more of a quick build and, you know, throw in these 5 creatures over here, definitely you would run him. But I don't run him just yet. Chances are, because of his 2 toughness, he's going to get chump blocked and die anyway, so, you know, you'll have a couple of creatures get +1 and then he's dead. Best case scenario, I don't know. If they don't block him and he keeps doing free things, that means you won the game regardless of whether he was there or not. Cudgel Troll is amazing because of regeneration, and it's a very cheap regeneration. You put a Rancor on this guy, and they better win the game real quick, because I don't know what you do about a 6/3 trample regenerating except take a bunch of damage. So Cudgel Troll is awesome. We're just going to throw in 1 for the moment because there's a lot of crazy good stuff. Brawn, 4 for a 3/3 trample, not terrible. And when he dies, you're always going to have a 4, so that's irrelevant. But when he's in the graveyard, everything else you have gets trample. Cudgel Troll's randomly trample. All these random wolf dudes are now trample. Leatherback Baloth is now trample. Screw it. Eternal Witness is trample. Why the hell not? You know? So that's a really good ability. Generally, all your powerful creatures are going to have trample anyway, but not always. So it's really nice that way. Granted, you do have Rancor in there as well, and 3 of them for that matter. So that's why I actually don't use it in my current build, but I've used him before. I'll probably use him again, but for the for the moment, whatever. We'll click him in there. Screw it. Bramble Crush, destroy target non-creature permanent. You can blow up lands. You can blow up artifacts. There's not really many artifacts. It's pretty much for blowing up things like pacifism on your creature, or blowing up lands if you're playing against a multicolored deck. This is kind of like what Acidic Slime wants to be, except, you know, without the 2/2 Death Touch in there as well. My original build, I actually ran all 3, and I very rarely got to cast them. When I did, it was kind of underwhelming, like, I guess that didn't really make a difference. So I've ended up taking all 3 of them out, even though I feel like you probably should run at least 1, just in case. I don't know. Running 1 is kind of silly. So it's either like 2 or nothing, in my opinion. So for the moment, we're just going to leave those out, but don't hesitate if you feel like you get sick of being pacified. You know? So whatever. Hell, you can even destroy their Armored Ascension or something if you really had to. Hunt the Weak. This is essentially prey upon 2.0, I guess. It costs a hell of a lot more, but it makes you slightly bigger. But it makes you bigger before the fight happens. So if you're equal strength, you will survive. I will survive! I think I've done that a few times now. And if you're a lower strength, that will allow you to get up into the trade range. But it is a lot higher, a lot more expensive. But it is also really the best thing you're going to get for removal. And, you know, if there was a deck that had Doom Blades and Murders and Go for the Throats, I would say you run all of it. And yet here I am, like, trying to debate why I should not be running all the Prey Upons and all the Hunt the Weak. It feels weird, it feels very hypocritical of me, so you probably should run it. You know, whatever. Bellowing Tangleworm. Other green creatures you control have Intimidate. That's actually that's powerful, because there's not many green stuff. You know, there's this deck, there's Eldrazi, but Eldrazi doesn't really use green creatures. I guess there's a couple slivers that could stand in your way. So let's just say 90% of the time, this says your creatures are unblockable, which is very, very cool. That kind of beats Trample by itself, really. So he's absolutely worth a consideration. He honestly, I've always taken him out of my deck, and I've never had him in here, and I feel like that's stupid. He probably should be, because your stuff is unblockable, so, you know what, whatever. Like, yeah, you know, he's just a one-of, so you can't really be like, oh, but I have Trample for that, whatever. Spiders, these are your only answer for flying dudes. Vigilance and Reach is really cool, so they can sit there. I think you should run at least 2. Unfortunately, we're starting to get up there really high in cards, and you know, there's a lot of stuff that we're not really running full copies of yet, and we're still yet to get to the main bread and butter of the deck here. Overwhelming Stampede, cast card, win game. That's nice. Overrun, cast card, most likely win game. There you go. Let's just pop them all in. If you want to change one enlarge for an overrun, just because if you, like, you know, you're in a tough battle or whatever, you've only really got one creature, you want to make that one creature really freaking big, you can potentially do that. It must be blocked, unfortunately, so it kind of mitigates the point that it makes it really big, and it's only one, so I don't know if I really recommend that. But if you want to take out an overrun for one enlarge, you could. The option is there, just to make one guy really fat out of nowhere. You know, if you're down to really, really low amounts of stuff, you have like an elf and what elf? What the hell am I talking about? You have like a wolf token and an Eternal Witness hanging out. Enlarge can potentially win you the game, while Overrun or Overwhelming Stampede won't at that point. So it's possible. It's probably not wise. Just consider it, I suppose. Rumbling Baloth? What am I thinking of? I'm thinking of Rumbling Slum. Rampaging Baloth, he's amazing, so you play him because you play him. Thanks. Primal Crux, he is amazing, so you play him because you play him. I mean, he's already got 6 right there. So he's 6 for a 6/6 trample. Bare minimum. If somebody casts Wrath of God and you top deck Primal Crux, he's a 6/6 for 6 with trample. Chances are he's going to be a hell of a lot bigger than that. So you play him. Primeval Bounty. Whenever you cast a creature spell, put a dude there. Whenever you play a non-creature spell, stuff gets bigger. Whenever you play land, gain life. That's all very well and good, and it does a lot of stuff. However, I have never been impressed with it yet. I've never felt like, wow, I'm glad I had that card. I would rather just have something that says I win the game instead of, hey, let's, you know, have some stuff. So I don't know. I'm yet to be convinced by it. I try to not get fooled by the little red color over here, but the red color's like, I'm a good card, play me. So I don't know. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. I've never been impressed. Garrick's Horde. Play with the top card of your library revealed. You may cast it if it's a creature card. It's decent. You know, there's a small chance that it'll be a creature card in the first place. I suppose you could cast it as opposed to having him draw it, but like you're going to be drawing a card anyway. I guess you'll be drawing a non-creature spell at that point, but you know, whatever. It can be a little bit of an acceleration of sorts. He's still a 7/7 trample for 7. That makes him automatically worth consideration. Regal Force, however, is my preferred 7-drop over that one. When he enters the battlefield, you draw a crap ton of cards. So who cares about looking at the top one and maybe casting it? Let's just draw them all and then do what I want. You know, Regal Force is just better. So that's where we're going to go. There happens to be 2 of them, which is amazing. 7 is where things get a little high, though. You know, I'm totally cool with 6 drops, Titans kind of solidified that in many people's minds, that once you get over 6, it's getting a little dicey. Even a deck like green generally is supposed to have a lot of ramp, but all we really have is a couple, well, 4 Nature's Lures. That's not really ramp anymore, you know? Like, where's our Mana Elves? Where's our Cultivate, I guess? Where's our Oracle of Moldiah? We don't have that, and because of that, 7 is starting to get up there. I don't know how many of this type of stuff we can run. At the same time, if we're not running more, then we don't really have a big green beats deck. So you gotta just, at some point with the green deck, you have to be like, you know what, I'm supposed to play fat creatures, I'm going to play fat creatures, but we still have fatter ones in the deck to look at for the moment. When he enters the battlefield, distribute a bunch of counters on stuff. Wait, 2/2 for 7? What? Next. Craterhoof Behemoth. This guy is awesome. 8 for a 5/5 haste. So his power by himself is it's underwhelming to say the least. However, when he enters the battlefield, you pretty much just cast another Overrun of sorts, and therefore you should automatically be winning the game, is pretty much what that means. Which, that's what you want. When you start getting to 7, especially when you get to 8, your 8 drop should say, I win the game, and he says, I win the game. So yes, it's a little on the freaking high side, and there's not too much we can do about it, but he wins the game. If you want to take out an Overrun for him, that's fair, you know, you're losing a little bit of cost and a little bit of flexibility, but you gain victory with him. So we're just going to throw him in for the moment. I understand we're at 61 right now. Living Hive, whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you get a bunch of little 1/1s. I'm sorry, for an 8 cost thing at 6/6 trample, I get 1/1s as my reward. I'm not enticed. I would rather draw a crap ton of cards, I would rather win the game, or I'd rather just have a better early game, really. I would. So, you know, whatever. And then Biorhythm, one of my favorite green cards of all time. I love this freaking card. Unfortunately, it just doesn't fit in the deck. If you play Two-Headed Giant, you probably should use it just for the funsies. But unfortunately, he just isn't gonna make the cut. As much as I love this freaking card, it's hilarious, especially against control, where it's like, oh, you have no creatures? Okay, I cast green spell that says kill target opponent. Thanks for playing, you know? It's fun. I really love this card. It's just not gonna fit. But if you want to have fun, it's totally worth playing for fun. So here we sit at 61 cards, where I still want to throw a Regal Force in here somewhere. I still kind of want to use Bramble Crush, I just don't have space. I really like both Cudgel Trolls. Again, I really like that guy. Beastmaster Ascension, like, where am I going to get all the time to do all this crap? And then we're still looking at a bunch of decent little early game creatures, which, considering the metagame is all aggro, they definitely make nice shield. Well, you make a shitty shield. You can't block Squidouche, man. And then there's still 2 Preyapons over here we've ignored. So there's just, it's really tough to cut, because you got to decide, like, do I want to just go heavy and skip early game? Well, not skip per se, but leave yourself a little bit more open. At least in your defense, the Rancors make everything early a threat, and all you need is 1 of them. So the fact that you have 3 is just icing on the cake. You should be getting 1 Rancor, which makes any single one of these guys potentially game ending. And they're really just here, you know, if they can get a few points of damage in, great. If they block and trade with a few creatures, great. If they prevent your opponent from attacking for a few turns, great. They have to be responded to at some point. The Witness will allow you just to get your early stuff back, which makes it, you know, really tempting to start playing a little bit more on the early stuff side. You could potentially get rid of Master of the Wild Hunt and Elephant Guide and help and use these guys to throw in fat stuff. I just feel like Elephant Guide already just makes something fat at no penalty. You know, if something bad happens, you're right where you left off for free. He's card advantage, you know, personified. Again, and with Master of the Wild Hunt, if things aren't going well, he can make things go well all by himself. So, especially as an early guy, he'll keep putting out tokens. He can really help you stabilize. I don't know if it's worth cutting something like that with so much utility and removal, especially, you know, if you're going to be popping an Overrun in a couple of turns. These Wolves, they'll win the game for you. So I don't know if something like this is worth dropping a Regal Force for, or dropping him for Regal Force. You know, it's tough to get down to those very, very, very nitty-gritty cards In the deck, you see this is much more higher end of a curve. The other decks are like really high, a little bit lower, a little bit lower, a little bit lower, a little bit lower, you know, none. Whereas this one's kind of just plateaued the whole way out. So unlike the other decks, you can't really afford to go down to 21 to 23. You kind of have to sit at 24. You could risk it and go to 23 at the lowest, but that feels tough. You do not want to miss land with this deck, especially if you're going to run him. As win the game as he is, 8 is definitely still a lot, you know, so maybe we're thinking take him out. But then we get to the promo cards. A Fauna Shaman hanging out can potentially fetch you some big fatties. We get another Rampaging Baloth, which will be an absolute must-play, and that, Lord knows what the hell we take out then. It'll give us a Pulse of the Tangle, a Protean Hulk, Decree of Savagery, another Vigor. Vigor will be a must-play in here. Potentially not in Eldrazi, depends on your build, depends on how you feel like, whatever. In here, Vigor must play. Green Sun Zenith, I don't know, maybe he's going to kind of switch with Vigor. What would you really fetch with him? I guess you could fetch a Witness, that would be sick as hell. But otherwise, you'd rather just have your big fat creature instead of, you know, spending 8 to get Regal Force into play. Just use the other copy of Regal Force, you know, if that's what your goal is. Because generally with things, when you get to tutor for stuff, there's only a couple select cards that you're always going to pick every single time. So what would you take with Green Sun Zenith that you can't just already play? Vorapede, he'll be must run. Crush of Worms is so freaking fun, but I don't know if it's going to have a place. But it's amazing. So, you know, there's still a few extra cards to consider with the promo unlocks. I do feel a little thin only having 3 big fat win the game creatures in a big green deck. Sheesh, I have even more in Avacyn's Glory. I have 5 win the game 5 drops. Here I only have 3. I guess I do obviously have triple Overrun and a Stampede here to help figure things out. Tangleworm, I suppose you could take him out for 1 big fatty, but this just makes everything unblockable. So potentially a quicker build is a good way to go, really. And that's just where personal flavor is going to have to make it shine. And that's where we're going to leave off my current deck right now. Again, always under construction. Let me know what you guys think for your comments and your opinions and your suggestions. There's so whole much crap I wish I could include here. This might even be tougher for me to trim than Deadwalkers. It really might be. God, double Prey Upon I'm not using. Hunt the Weak or Prey Upon. What's better? What's better? Man, that's tough. That's tough, that's tough, that's tough. I'll take out 1 and pop it in Prey Upon. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just kind of messing around. I'm always in a state of testing cards out. So this is where we stand for now, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. Take it easy. Kick some ass. Catch you later. Peace.